Anime is one of the most popular forms of animation in the world. Anime meaning animation from Japan, of course. Although popular worldwide now, anime didn't always have the same reach in the beginning. In this video, I will take you back to the origins of how anime started. Now, most of you probably think to shows like Astro Boy when thinking back to when anime started, but there is some history we should cover before getting to him. Much like in other parts of the world, animation in Japan started with magic lanterns, but in the late 1910s, animation started to take on a new face. In 1907, the first anime was made, Katsudo Sashin, or activity photo. Anime took similar routes as Western animation. In one way, that is due to comic artists being some of the first animators. Much of early Japanese animation was for advertising purposes, and due to films being destroyed, it's difficult to get an exact form of how much animation came from that era. In 1923, the Tokyo earthquake destroyed a large portion of any animation that was in Japan. During this time, Japanese animators were already struggling to compete with Walt Disney Studios, whom at the time was doing fairly well in foreign markets. With money being a concern, Japanese animation studios had to work cheap using cutouts as opposed to more expensive and advanced techniques such as celluloid animation. This prompted artists to get creative with the ways that they worked in animation. During the Second World War, animation, much like most forms of entertainment at that time, was forced into products of nationalism. Thankfully, post-World War manga artists began to thrive. Leading into the 1950s, Japanese animation studios tried to compete once again with Walt Disney Studios. In 1958, Japan Animated Films became Toei Dogma to become Japanese equivalent. You guessed it, to Disney. It wasn't until years later, in 1958, that Japan was considered a real contender in animation with his film, Panda and the Magic Serpent. The success of this film allowed for Toei to publish a new animation annually. During this time, Toei had a new animator hired as an in-betweener that would later shape anime in a new direction, but we'll have to talk about him at a later time. So let's jump into the 1960s. This is when anime style as we know it today was developed. Things such as the large eyes, crazy colored hair, spiky variants of hair, and the type of action that we see really took on this form. With Toei still aiming high for those Disney dreams, a little robot made that possible. Astro Boy premiered in 1963. This was a huge hit in Japan and also Toei's first large venture in distributing animation to the West. This sparked an allure in anime based around technology, especially those based in space or with robots. These robot-inspired series were branded as Mecca Anime. The fascination with Mecca Anime is a long one that is still even being represented today. But one of the great things about early Mecca Anime was it was a way to convey more adult stories that typically weren't seen in cartoons of that time. This would be seen with series such as Robotech or Gundam. Whereas when they were brought to America, much of the time they were trying to be pushed more towards children. That was not always their original intentions. Other great series that spawned in early Mecca Anime could be considered things like Cyborg 009. But the technological fascination in anime didn't only span to fighting giant robots. Sometimes it could be applied to other series that would also be geared towards young boys. Series such as a racing series, Speed Racer. Speed Racer premiered in 1967, gaining similar popularity in the West to that of Astro Boy. At that time, there was a big boom in America due to General Motors being a primary form of employment for many people, that cars really were something that Western audiences could connect to, which led to a series from Japan based around this, gaining a lot of popularity. So that brings us to the end of a very brief history of early anime. It's hard to deny the impact that anime has on animation as a whole. Its many ways of storytelling, showing action, and conveying emotion bring a rounded and enjoyable style of animation that is vast and most people can find at least one animated series that they can enjoy. I hope you enjoyed my video.